refresh Manny Pacquiao. He put up his Twitter poll. Who should he fight next? Got Floyd Mayweather, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter. Hmm. So who's missing from that picture? There's this guy called Earl Spence Jr. You know, Terrence Crawford. Hmm. I respect the legends of the game. I respect Manny Pacquiao. I like Manny Pacquiao. Seems like a cool dude. He's a great fighter. He's well accomplished. Doesn't really owe much. True. My only problem is that if you're gonna hang around and fight, around the top of the division, you're teasing the fans, bro. You're teasing the fans. You hopped in the ring and you said, and they asked you, would you fight Earl Spence next? Sure, why not? It's a good fight for the fans. Manny, come on, Manny. I mean, I told you guys before, I'll see it when I believe it. I didn't think he would fight Earl Spence Jr. next. I think financially, outside of Floyd Mayweather Jr., I think it makes the most sense for Manny, given the other welterweights' performances, Because Keith Thurman, he looked great in his first 6 rounds versus Josecito Lopez. And then once he got finally touched under the bright lights, clearly his chin was rusty and he almost got stopped. And then you have Sean Porter, who, last week or 2 weeks ago, nearly got beat by your Dennis Ugas, who most would say was probably a little bit underrated going into the fight. Ugas is a solid fighter and arguably beat Sean Porter. And you have Danny Garcia, who's 1-2 in his last 3 fights, lost to Keith, and it was a fun fight early, but it was never really that fight with Keith Thurman with Danny Garcia became competitive once Keith Thurman took his foot off the gas. That's when the fight got more competitive, but also more dull, less entertaining. So once Keith kind of took his foot off the pedal, and I think probably was feeling that layoff, because fighting at that pace off a layoff can be tough. So he didn't look good in that fight. Beat Brandon Rios. That was a fun fight. Even got the knockout. First to knock out Rios with a headshot. Bradley stopped him before, but you know, Rios is known to have a pretty good chin, solid beard, and he stopped him with a headshot. And then, came back later in the year and fought Sean Porter. It was competitive. Danny was definitely landing some good shots, but he wasn't consistent. And Sean Porter, he outworked him. And now he's fighting Adrian Granados, who's a solid fighter. I respect Adrian Granados. He's kind of like he's like a welterweight Gabe Rosado almost. Like 140, he was close to a title shot after he beat Amir Khan, but then he took bigger fight opportunities at 147 and fighting like Broner and Felix Diaz, and now he's fighting Danny Garcia. I think he fought Kermit Cintron before at 154. So Granado's got a resume. He fought Sean Porter. So Granados is definitely down. He's kind of like, he's kind of like a Gabe Rosado at 147. He's game, he's tough, kind of box, can kind of fight. Decent power. So and that fight's in a month. Danny Garcia versus Granados. That's not a bad one. I'll lean with Danny Garcia to get that dub, but say what you mean what you say. I don't care who you are, whether it's Manny Pacquiao, Sean Porter. Now Danny Garcia is talking some mess, saying Earl Spence didn't look all that spectacular, and he sees Earl Spence is he's not the boogeyman of the division, and I think it's weird, because Earl Spence outboxed Mikey. Now these fighters think, okay, Earl Spence is not he's not Julian Jackson. His power doesn't immediately break your ribs off contact. So these fighters are crazy, man. It's like they have to see vulnerability just to get, somewhat bold or brave to even, want to fight you. Not that Danny's going to call out Earl Spence Jr. next. We know that won't happen. And I'm not just trying to bum bash Danny Garcia or Manny Pacquiao or Porter or Keith Thurman. I actually like all these fighters. I like Keith Thurman. I like Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Manny Pacquiao. But we've seen this from Pacquiao before. You could argue the Terrence Crawford fight should have happened, years ago. They've been trying to make that fight when Pacquiao used to be with Top Rank and Bob Arum. After every Terrence Crawford fight, Max Kellerman will always ask Manny Pacquiao, is Terrence Crawford? Is that a fight you would, is that a fight you would like to have? We definitely want to see it. They always ask Terrence Crawford, would you fight Manny Pacquiao? And he's like, yeah, Bob, make it happen. I think it was after Terrence Crawford beat Derry John is when that fight started to make some, buzz because Terrence Crawford still is looking like a beast, And it would have been kind of a passing of the torch, between top-ranked superstars. But, obviously Bob and Team Manny Pacquiao ultimately decided not to have it. And now Manny Pacquiao's on the Al Haymon side and, watching Keith Thurman's last performance. And, he almost got stopped. Sean Porter, he almost got beat. Danny Garcia lost 2 of his last 3 fights. So he seems more down to fight those guys. But obviously the top dogs like Earl Spence and Terrence Crawford, absolute no smoke. It could be a blessing in disguise. I know financially and, exposure-wise, Earl Spence wanted the Pacquiao bag. And even I believe he's the most deserving of, or at least of the PBC welterweights, of the Thurmans, who held the division hostage for a year, openly ducked Spence. Sean Porter definitely avoided Spence. Danny Garcia, he's been avoiding Spence. He never even wanted to fight Sean Porter, to be honest. It wasn't until the WBC belt became available when, they threatened to strip Keith Thurman. That's when he took the Sean Porter fight, is because, the belt was also on the line. Because Sean Porter, he's been on Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman for a minute, so it's sad that, we have to see guys get exposed, or maybe they're good fighters, but maybe they're not quite the knockout guys, even though it's weird that boxers don't understand that if you're that good and you're, top 5, top 6, typically you don't get knocked out as much unless you just James Kirkland, just go for it, Like people who want to say, Earl Spence, I think he still is a big puncher. It's just Mikey he's the one that needed to sell out. He's the one that needed to make an adjustment and go for the dub, because it was clear after 7 rounds that Earl Spence has wiped the floor with Mikey skillfully. And, if Mikey doesn't turn around, what's the point? I'm not a believer in moral victories in boxing. He just got beat up for 12 rounds. So Mikey fans, and I like Mikey Garcia too. I told you guys he's one of my favorites, but size matters and skill matters. And Earl Spence showed skillfully he had no business being in the ring. So we'll see. I think it's good in a way. Pacquiao, he's going to do, like a lot of legends do, he's going to do whatever they want. Earl Spence versus Sean Porter, it's still a good fight, especially for legacy. Yes, it's not the legend and financial gain you would have gotten from beating Pacquiao, but it's still a good fight. It's still a unification. There is history. You did both go to the Olympics. I think Kenny Porter was the coach of that team or something like that. So it's still not a bad fight. You could do it in Vegas or Barclays or something. So let me know what you guys think. Drop comments, like, dislike, subscribe. Other than that, you guys have a good one.